Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening iPro Network Leadership Training with our International Director, Mr. Johnny Reed. We're going to get started here in just a few seconds, but I definitely want to encourage you all. It's not too late to send a message out to some of your folks and get them on this particular training. We have heard some incredible things coming from this training. And also, if you can, for those of you that are on, please go ahead and chat in there. If you can hear my voice and see the screen, I greatly appreciate it. And we're going to get started here in just about 5 more seconds. If I can get some of you guys to log in, let me know that you can hear my voice. Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, without further ado, I have the pleasure and the honor of welcoming on someone that I have tremendous respect for, not only for his accolades within this industry, but just his skill set and his demeanor, the way he is able to really sit down and build relationships with people, something that I admire, and a craft and a skill that I know he honed over many years in his career. And so, guys, you guys could not be hearing from anybody better as we learn about leadership here with the iPro Network. So without further ado, please help me welcome our International Sales Director, Mr. Johnny Reed. Johnny, are you there, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Delgadillo, and welcome everybody. It is April the 10th in the United States. On that side of the world, it is already the 11th over here in Asia. And I want to welcome you to today's leadership training. So let's get started. Now, I keep showing this same slide each and every week that we do these because it's so important to understand that, failing is part of success. It's just not the end result, but it's absolutely paramount that failure happens along the way because that's the adjustment period. And if you want to really be afraid not to try. Remember, this is a leadership training. I'm coming from you from a little rice village called Coomrong, Thailand. That's about a 5-hour drive to Bangkok over into the north eastern section of Thailand, right there by Laos. And so as we begin today, we're going to have 2 topics as we always do. The first one is don't wait for opportunity. As a leader, you need to learn how to create it. Now, if you're a leader, that doesn't mean today is day 1 for you. You still want to be a student and practice what you should be doing as a student, as a brand new ISA in the company, which is introducing your prospects and your contacts to your support team, right? A lot of people in network marketing like to say upline. I don't like that dialogue. I always like to make sure edification stays intact, right? Because that's a dialogue only known within the industry. And so how do you create it? Well, it goes along with the same lines that we've been talking for the last couple of weeks. Remember, leadership is something that you can't really teach somebody. It's a decision that you need to make, and only you can make it. And as a leader, you want people to follow you because they respect you, because they trust you. It doesn't matter if they like you, but if they respect you and they trust you, and that was kind of a bold statement. You say, what do you mean if they don't like me? Well, I learned the most about leadership when I was 17 years old and I joined the Armed Forces of the United States. I was a United States Marine. And I did not like my senior drill instructor. He was like, the harshest, meanest guy you could possibly imagine. He had been in combat in the Vietnam War, right? Because I was in just after that. And so this is a gentleman I had massive respect for. And he taught me a lot about growing up and actually becoming a man and a Marine. So that's what I mean. When you're a leader, the people will share their blood, their sweat, and their tears for you. And they do that because they respect you and they trust you. And of course, you have to earn that, right? Respect is not something that's just given because you have a title or some kind of fancy acronym that you went to school and got some type of degree. Here in the home-based business world, you can see a leader just by the way they carry themselves, the way that people talk about them. Anytime I go into a new country, a new city, or even an old one, and I meet a leader, the first thing I try to do silently, right, quietly, is I go talk to the people to see how they feel about their leader. And of course, if I see there's mad respect for that person, that I know they're the real deal. So you don't want to wait for opportunity, you want to create it. Now, if you're a leader and you've got 10 people on your team, 100 people on your team, 1,000, 10,000, you're as busy as you want to be, because there's no time in the day there would be nothing to do, right? In order to create opportunity, right, you have to have the relationships with your key people, not just because you personally recruited somebody, but as you have relationships with people. They say in the industry, everybody's got a warm market list. Those are the people that are not they're their family. That's a hot market, right? A brother, a sister, a mom, a dad. That's a hot market. A warm market is associates, best friends, colleagues, people they've done business with before, people they have familiarity with them. Everybody has at least 100 people within their warm market. Now, when you throw in the people they know on social media, now the numbers can radically be changed. So where am I going with all this? Well, as a leader, you're here to help cultivate their organization. In other words, you're there to dig down and find the key people within all their organizations. So again, if you have 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, those numbers can be multiplied by 10, by 50, by 100, excuse me, of the people you can be in contact with, but then you've got to learn how to create it. And so there are many ways, because of the internet, that you can reach out and touch people. So here is just an example of what happened over the last week or so as I flew into Thailand, which I have a home here, and I've been, it wasn't really so much that I worked in Thailand for the last 10 years. I did a lot of pro bono work with orphanages and just got to know the people and the culture. But I had was introduced to somebody that somebody knew, and then that individual reached out and then had me meet people privately before. And so this is kind of the crux of what I'm getting to. So after meeting these people and asking certain questions, and the person to the far right of the page, front and center, there's a gentleman who is a builder, but he's more of a businessman than a networker. He owns like 30 radio stations. He's all about the crypto space, the learning space. He understands Thailand. He's very successful. The lady in the picture, she is someone that owns a TV station. And then Afon, the person that we're working around here in Thailand, he has been on the TV show multiple times, and he is also someone who has far-reaching contacts throughout the country. So they're talking about building an organization of a very large proportion and many tens of millions of dollars in actual business for the first year. So the meeting that we had wasn't just didn't appear, right? You have to reach out and you have to ask the questions and motivate the people. And so I said, well, look, these people are kind of high caliber. Let's set up a nice meeting. It's your country, it's your city here in Bangkok. Set something up. And so we met on a beautiful rooftop. This is actually where they shot one of the scenes from the movie Hangover, right? If you remember when they went to Bangkok and there was a helicopter that came in, and I don't give away the movie, but if you saw the movie, this was the place that they shot that scene. And it's absolutely gorgeous. It's on the 64th floor. So the point of this is having a dinner and breaking bread is building better relationships with the people you want to do business with. Now, remember, it was somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody that knew Afon that knew some other people. So, that's 5-6 generations removed. And that's just starting from the relationship that came out of the United States. And then it goes upline, if you will, from there. So as a leader, you might have recruited 5 people, 50 people, but how far down in the organization did you go, right? This is how you create an opportunity. So many people are constantly looking for new blood, and there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of people within the organization, and they're just waiting for somebody to show them the way, right? So point them in the right direction. So I'm not saying don't go get new people. That's always the best thing. If you think you have nothing better to do, then sure, go out and find some new blood yourself. It works great in the comp plan that pays 4 generations of leadership matching. But I have never in my almost 30-year career had a time where there was nothing to do, right? There's always somebody to reach out to. And I think it was last week that we talked about a 1-minute phone call. And if you're doing that tactic of 1-minute phone call, there's so many names going to be dropped in your lap, it's not even going to be funny. And so that's the point is, I gave you an exercise last week, which would keep you incredibly busy and motivate your team. But now when the team gets motivated, they bring more people. Now, when they bring more people, then leadership is paramount to go out there and interact with these people, especially if you're an income producer. They want to meet the people that are making the checks. They want to meet the people that have the relationship with the people who have actually really built the company. You know, you might be a week old, a month old, 6 months old, but there are people in the program that have been here from day one. So as a leader, relationships are always going to be key, but you've got to work to establish that you're interested in them. It's not like you sit in a castle and hope that people can climb the wall to come see you. You've got to physically go out eventually over time. I'm not saying there's people in today. I remember I'm old school. There are people today that can just sit behind the computer and do amazing things. But for my personal experience, I know that all the key leaders have great relationships where they've either broken bread or at least had a cup of coffee and shared with the person their vision of what they're hoping to accomplish. And then more importantly, they're asking the person, what is their vision? What does their future look like with this type of an opportunity sitting in their lap? So remember, you want to create a story every time you go out. It could be a good one. It could be a bad one. Look, I've made a ton of money myself, and this isn't about me, but sharing bad stories and say, well, you know, let me tell you what this knucklehead did, right? And so sometimes people go, oh, I'm not the only one. But then the follow-up, right, is key. It's always in the follow-up, right? They always say money's in the follow-up. So you follow it up with the plan. And a plan isn't, hey, I go give a meeting on such and such a night, you know, and I get everybody all riled up and they're all great, and then I go see the movies. You know, when you give a presentation and a person signs up on your team, that's not the work. The work part comes next, which is these people going home and they're supposed to be, you know, going through their warm contacts list. They're reaching out to social media. And they're going to start creating action of their own. Now, they need to bring those people to you. Now, remember, this is a leadership call. And you've got to paint a very clear, crystal clear picture of what they can do so their people can interact with you. That's the plan. Now, you don't have to wait for Mr. Delgadillo's amazing presentations that he gives every Monday night. Matter of fact, you know, it's almost a crime if you're not encouraging your team to bring people to Monday. But Monday's 1 out of 7 days. What do you do in the other 6 days? See, it's a 7-day week. Now, it's good to rest 1 day out of the 7, right, to recharge the batteries. But now we're talking about 5 more days of interaction. Now, we have a leadership call, but a leadership call is not recruiting and giving presentations. We've got an amazing update call that's usually given by one of the vice presidents like Mr. Sal Leto. And of course, they just came back from Africa where they just lit it up, right? They were meeting all people from government and top networkers on that continent. And it was amazing. So they created their own story and they went out. And I can promise you, they didn't go over there and then email everybody in Africa. They went out and they rubbed shoulders with people. They had meetings. They, you know, told the story of the company and where their vision was and talked about how Africa could participate and how it could liberate the people and they could grow prosperity. And again, so as we come back to this, you always have to have a plan. And the plan can change over time. But, you know, there's an old cliche that if you don't make a plan, you're planning to fail. And it is the reason why the cliche exists, because it's the absolute truth. In this business, you do not have to be great to make a lot of money. You have to be good, but you do not have to be great, right? You don't have to be somebody like Mr. Delgadillo who can just give a marvelous presentation in his sleep, but you have to be consistent. In order to be consistent, there has to be a plan. What are you going to do on Monday? What are you going to do on Tuesday? What are you going to do on Wednesday? You say, well, JR, this sounds like a lot of work. Well, this type of business can make 10 times, sometimes 50 times what a job will pay you. Right? It has a multiple seven-figure agreement. I like to tell people contract. I might get in trouble for that, but it's an agreement where if you produce X amount of dollars from your team's volume, the company can pay you over $5 million US. There's very rare jobs, unless you're kind of some sporting, freak like a LeBron James or something like that you can go out and make a multiple 7-figure income. And then when you decide that, you've done your part and your team is growing, the money can still come. And your overhead is virtually nothing compared to a traditional business, right? So creating a story, and then you got to follow it up with a plan. This is incredibly important. You say, well, JR, what's the plan? I can't build your business for you. I can build it with you, but I don't know what your goals are, right? We're going to be talking about that next week, because your goals are going to determine how much action you apply to this. And of course, if you have no goals, you're going to apply very little action, right? You're just going to kind of stumble forward. You're going to be a ship on the ocean with no rudder. So wherever the wind blows, that's the direction you go. And that is not how you want to run your business. Remember, your business is supposed to serve your life, not become your life, right? And we'll talk about setting priorities and things of that nature next week. Okay, so that was kind of the first lesson. The second lesson kind of drifts off a little bit of leadership, and it goes back to being a new person. But the same principles still remain when it comes to leadership. And so I've seen so many people over the last almost 3 decades talk about they're not a really good salesperson. So the first thing I want to share with you is, well, you better start becoming a better salesperson, because no matter what you do in life, you're buying or selling, right? If you can't sell, that means you're always buying somebody else's idea. You're always buying somebody else's instructions. You're always buying somebody else's beliefs. You want to start selling your own. Selling doesn't mean you monetarily have to make money from every transaction, but as you listened for the last X amount of minutes, you were either agreeing or disagreeing. You were either buying or selling the information that was just passed down to you. Now remember, I said passed down to you because I don't have an original thought in this industry in my head. I have got a lot of experience, but the lessons came from people that either became number one of the fastest privately held company in this country with hundreds of millions of dollars in growth the first year, somebody who built a multi-$100 billion insurance company, or the world record holder for paying the most money, the most people in the shortest period of time. So I'm just a messenger here today. I'm here to serve. And I'm just sharing with you some of the ideas that have been passed down to me that have obviously proven time and time again to work 100% of the time. So sorting versus selling. And when you start to gravitate to this, then the fear evaporates, because sorting is no more than the very first story I was taught in training back in 1989. Think about that. Where were you in 1989, right? It was November, it was cold, I was in Chicago, and I was sitting in a room. There was a packed house the night before in a presentation. You could not put another person in the room. And they talked about, hope and opportunity and dream and money and products and helping people. And the next day I showed up at 10 o'clock in the morning to go to my training, expecting to have another packed house. And I found myself sitting in the room all by myself. And I can promise you there was a ton of self-doubt. Did I just get hoodwinked? Was it all just a sham? But I said, okay, well, I'm here. They turned down the lights. They put in a VHS tape. Remember, we're back in 1989, and they let the TV play. And there was no edification, so I didn't know who was coming on the screen. And this guy was making sense. He was saying things that I go, well, I could do that. Well, that makes sense. Okay. And I went through this for 90 minutes. And after the 90 minutes, I said, man, that guy's amazing. Well, these people were so new in the business, they didn't understand edification. He was like the record holder of the company. He had done, this is almost 30 years ago. He had done over $201,000 in sales in his first 30 days. He got a $63,000 first month check. Now, he was a millionaire by the time I watched the VHS tape. But that was the very first person that got in my head. And one of the stories he shared with me, and I kind of modified the story just because I have a lot more spiritual belief than he does. And that's no disrespect to him. It's just, we are who we are. And I like to say that in the story, God's already done all the work for you. You just have to go through the motions. and leave your ego out of the equation. And so sorting versus selling, he said, well, what if you found yourself going to an apple orchard and they give you a big, basket to put the apples in, and you pay a little small fee, and you walk into the apple orchard and you're allowed to take as many apples that'll fit in your basket, and you can eat it as much as you want, and you can take the rest down to the market and sell it. He said, no, when you walk into the apple orchard, now remember, God's already done the work. You didn't plant the trees. They've been growing for, years and years and years. And it's time for most of the apples to be picked. And as you walk into the apple orchard, there's all kinds of apples on the ground, right? Now, you didn't put them there. They're there already. And he said, those are rotten apples, right? He said, now, do you want to pick one up? No. Do you want to eat one? Do you want to step on one? No. You want to avoid it at all costs. Now, that serves a purpose, right? Because that's how future trees can grow, right? The apples, become rotten, but then the seeds fall into the ground, and eventually a couple of them take root and they grow another tree. Now, but that might take another 10 or 20 years. You don't have that long to wait. So you avoid the rotten apples. But remember, they have a purpose. It's not your purpose. So you should never be mean and never let the negativity, right, or the smell rub off on you. Now, the second kind of apple isn't done maturing yet. Again, is that your fault? No, it's a plan that's already in motion. Now, if you've mistakenly taken a green apple off a tree and bit into it, it's a very unpleasant experience, right? It's very bitter, very sour. You probably spit out the piece vulgarly. And what do you do with the apple in your hand with a big chunk missing? You put it in your basket? No, you throw it on the ground. Now, the third apple is a red one. It's in the tree. How do you know it's a red apple? Well, it's real simple. It's red. And it's no more than just picking it off the tree and putting it in your basket or enjoying a pleasant snack, if you will. And you can relate that to people. So when you go into the apple orchard, your job is not to convince the rotten apple to jump back in the tree and become ripe again, because that's impossible. It's not your job to get a ladder and a lantern and climb up the ladder and talk to the green apple all night long, trying to convince it that it is a red apple. It is not the right time for them. See, if you just say, oh, I understand. You give them a presentation, they say, well, we just got a new promotion. Things are tight. We just bought a home. You say, fantastic, absolutely. Hey, let's just stay in touch. That doesn't mean you call them at 6 o'clock the next morning to see if they changed their mind. Right? You put a little tickler in them. So why am I sharing with this with you on a leadership call? Because these are the fundamentals you have to teach your new people, right? These are the lessons that they will really appreciate it, because nothing is worse than being incredibly enthusiastic about your business opportunity, running over to your next door neighbor and have them not physically, but mentally punch you in the face that you've made a bad decision, right? If you don't give them the lesson, right? Even the lessons coming from the good book said, not everybody's going to buy your story when you're in the home. He said, make sure you shake out every grain of sand in your shoe or sandal at the time before you go into the next home. See, even the master teacher prepared his students for negativity. He prepared them for rejection and said, don't let that affect you the next time you go talk to a brand new person. Don't bring that baggage with you of the naysayer when you're talking to a new person. Well, how's that relevant in networking? Well, it's everything. Because if you're a leader, you will go through a massive amount of people that your people are bringing to you. And you need to simply understand they're either going to be a rotten, no, a green, not now, or yes, pick me. No pun intended there, but that came across the right time. So when you're in the leadership business, you're still sorting. And you will go through not dozens of people like a person recruiting. You'll go through hundreds. Sometimes you go through thousands of people. You're just looking for that one red apple that can light up an entire country, light up an entire city, if you will. Someone who can just do great things in a short period of time. And it's a gift to you because your people are working hard to bring you their contacts. So when you find a negative person, do not let it rub off on you for more than 1 second. Listen, understand, say, I get it. Thanks for coming. Hey, thanks for seeing us. Be courteous, be kind, and move on, and just shake it off. And then when you find people that are not ready, make sure you inform your person. Hey, call that guy in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. When you get your first check, send them a photocopy, right? Send them a letter, send them a thank you card. So the point here is sorting is something that anyone can do. Anyone can walk into an apple orchard and pick a red apple off a tree. Anyone can go out there and sort through their lists. And if they understand there's going to be only 3 kinds of people and you have to instruct them, right? You have to motivate them, you have to educate them, not to let it get to them. You're only in the binary concept, you only need 2 people theoretically, and you can make a 7-figure income. Now, as a leader, it's a little different, right? Because as a leader, you obviously want to build more than 2 teams. And as you build 4 teams, 5 teams, 6 teams, in as much as 8 different teams, you're going to be dealing with thousands of people on a given month. You're going to go through tens of thousands of people that you'll be interacting with. Not personally, you're going to sit down and shake everybody's hand, but you might give opportunity meetings to 300 people, 500 people, 1,000 people. You're still sorting wherever you go. You're looking for those key people to take out to dinner on a big, 64th floor of a fancy building and having a dinner and then asking them questions. You're still sorting constantly until you find the people that will engage. And then when they engage, then it's a whole different topic of leadership that you and I can discuss. But at this stage of the game, we're into the creating momentum phase, right? And as you're creating the momentum out of your team, right? 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, you're looking for those 1 or 2 people that can just blow it up. And that's called leverage. And you got to work as smart as you do hard. It's great to work hard, but it's not good enough. It's great to work smart, but that's not good enough. You've got to work smart and hard at the same time. Well, this is JR saying thanks for tuning in this week. We'll be at this again. It'll be my last week in Asia before I fly back to the United States. We're going to be talking about goal setting specifically, not just some, frilly off the cuff, you got to have a goal to be successful, but we're going to get into the nitty gritty, what type of goals to set for your iPro networking group business. What's the most important ones? What's the least important ones? What's a long-term goal? What does that look like? What's a short-term goal? We're talking about how many people, how many meetings, how many webinars, things that'll make you absolutely a stone cold killer, if you will. It's probably the wrong verbiage to use for this, but that's my military training, so I apologize. But you want to be as serious as a heart attack, but at the same time, remember, you want your people to believe in you. They need to trust you. And then and only then will they follow you. So again, this is JR saying thanks for tuning in from Coomrong, Thailand. Bye for now.